We've heard murmurs, right, of the GOP realigning itself, if only by accident, into a slightly less overtly racist, but very nationalist, economically nationalist conservative party in response to this crisis. I think Matt Christman has bandied this about. Not that the Republicans are consciously getting less racist, but, you know, it looks like some people of color, maybe I think the economic anxiety thing does hold true for these groups, are being attracted to this somehow. But then we see Tucker Carlson say things like this, and I'm like, maybe not yet. It's clip number 6.
News organizations have called the state of Michigan for Joe Biden, but we're seeing a lot of strange things happen in that state tonight, including poll watchers apparently being blocked from witnessing the count. And that's not a good sign. Matt Finn has been covering from an absentee ballot counting center in the city of Detroit, and he joins us tonight. Matt, good to see you. What do you see?
Tucker, today there are some pretty tense moments inside of this room. Basically, some poll workers or some of the voting challengers told us that there was not an equal number of Democrats and Republicans in this room throughout the entire process. It led to some shoving matches or some fighting matches, and eventually police had to step in and escort people out of the absentee ballot counting room. I took these people's claims to the Secretary of State here in Michigan. A spokesperson tells us in part, quote, "These are poll challengers who have a legal avenue to address any legitimate concerns regarding any rules they claim were not following." Now, in the midst of all that chaos, there were some windows back here that allowed for observation that were covered up with paper and posters. That led to even more confusion and outrage as protesters pounded on these windows, demanding the ability to see inside. I talked to Detroit City Attorney a short while ago. He tells us he ordered some of the windows to be covered because some of the poll workers nearest the windows were concerned that people were filming them or information on the ballots. And right now, Detroit, Tucker, tells us that it has about 1,500 absentee ballots or less to be counted, and then all of Detroit's absentee ballots will be counted. Tucker.
Matt Finn, thanks. Detroit, Michigan, one of the most mismanaged places in the Western Hemisphere. Now tonight helping to pick your president. Well, today the Trump campaign announced legal action.
Some real racism there, just open about it, mismanaged. And yeah, how dare the voters in Detroit be able to pick your president? President.
Even if like that's true, that, you know, it's some terrible, like the city was like falling apart and in shit. Like, it doesn't matter if they're American citizens there, they have a right to pick the president with their vote. I mean, it's ludicrous that he would even make that point. But
well, it's who is doing it.
Yes,
it's not some suburb full of Tucker watchers.
No, this is the populist who cares about the will of the people.
Oh yeah,
right. Talking down about specific people. And it should be more like a senatorial system then, Tucker, if that's your belief. You think that people from on high should make decisions about the plebeians. That's his perspective, as he calls himself a right-wing populist.
Well, it's nuts because even within the Fox News framing and even within Tucker Carlson's shitty racist framing of this story, who looks like maniacs and thugs here? Is it the people trying to exercise their right to vote, or is it the insane right-wing protesters who are pounding on the windows and getting the cops called on them?
Yeah, it's like
Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, like Tucker Carlson has his cameraman and reporter in that secretive room where all the election's being stolen. If Tucker's so concerned about it, why don't you like this? I just hate. I mean, thank you for bringing up the right wing populists, Emma, because Josh Hawley also got in on this yesterday. And Josh Hawley is some kind of Ivy League law student guy, so he knows better than this. But he's a propagandist. He's a reactionary propagandist. And so, the scene happens. They start putting this up because people are pounding on the windows, like Dawn of the Dead style. What is going on here?
Why blinders on a horse?
Like, what secrecy are you talking about, Josh? That is a Fox News camera.
Yeah, I know. They actually literally have news media in there. If it's such a secret, that's not very well kept.
And we should sort of explain like who these people counting the votes are. Like I'm sure there's people out there who picture like these like lifelong government officials like on the on the government dole. Not there's anything wrong with that. But who these people are who are getting like their pictures taken and videoed, they're literally like your neighbors who offer up their time to work on election day at the poll sites or at the actual vote counting centers after the election to count the votes. They're paid a day rate, and once this is all over, they're back in their homes on their retirement, or they're back working their service job or their freelance gig, or some people even take off from work and use vacation days to then go ahead and work at the polls to make extra money. Like these aren't people who are some sort of like maniacal, like deep state undercover, like government officials. Like these are just normal, like your neighbors.
Well, they're willing to go that extra mile to steal the election from Donald Trump,
Yeah, and get paid to do it too. How outrageous.
I do want to say, like, you look at how this is developing. I think if you want to get involved, I've been saying this before, like, better than get involved with your local Democratic Party is get involved with administering elections, because these people are going to. They're going to figure out a way how to get in on the right side of the glass, I think, in the future. And it's scary. So we're going to need to, administer democracy and make sure it's not left into the hands of these people because I think they're going to really try to flood the zone, seeing how this went.
Well, I mean, the dear leader is saying that the election's going to be stolen over and over and over and over and over again, that it is being stolen, which is what we knew he'd say, but I feel sometimes like we still underestimate how dangerous that is.
Yeah. Well, luckily those ballots have those watermarks.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the Josh Hawley point is like this is not just a Trump problem. This is a Republican somebody pointed out on Twitter to move from stop the recount in 2000 to stop the count in 2000. That's the trajectory of this party. And it's not just Trump. If it was close enough and there was a significance enough for them to steal us, they'd steal it. Yeah. Or at least actually do it. And I don't think that, it's opportune for them right now.
Yeah. Well, for better or for worse, Democrats are largely institutionalists. They believe in our bourgeois institutions, such as voting and the process. They're not going to do a very good job defending it, if you want me to look into my crystal ball. But, hopefully there's lots of people who will.
Well, yeah, we don't need to go through the Democrats at all to work in terms of administering elections. That's like a local civics thing.